So welcome everybody to communication, and this flipped classroom session will be about national and global communication based on Samovar and Porter's chapter about different cultures. So here we go. We have communication is culture and culture is communication. Is that right? Just think about this for 10 seconds. Okay, so that was 10 seconds in my head. So communication is culture. Yeah, it is, because you use communication in culture, but culture is also communication. So no matter how you communicate, it will always be affected of culture. And culture, of course, can be many things. Not only different countries, but also the way that you behave, the way you talk, the way you shine, and so on. Based on this chapter we have here, people learn, they feel, they believe, they act through their culture. And when we have the culture, we also have different kind of messages who is sending out, and that is communicated by those people in the culture. If we have the umbrella here, you can see culture is in the top. And underneath we have everything from religion to age to sexual orientation. We have gender, nationality, generations, and so on and so on. So we have many things underneath culture. And there's not only one aspect of humans and how they live. We have many aspects. So there's no right or wrong. Not if you see in the total perspective, but of course, if you go into deep with cultures and isolated cultures, of course you can do things right or wrong. So culture is a part of who we are, no matter if you're black or white, if you are Christian or Muslim, it doesn't matter. You have a culture behind you. So if we have people here, we have a lot of people, we also have culture. But one person by itself can't make culture. That will be individually instead. So culture is where we organize the world in small societies or bigger societies. And it needs to be created over time, because we need to agree on that this is our culture. Because if it's not the way that we're doing it, it's not a part of our culture. And it has to make sense for the community, for the society, for their world. It's of course based on their experience or our experience in the world that we live in. So the culture is only culture if we agree on that it's culture, and we often agree on that through communication. We have this little boy here, he is black, but no matter if you're black or white, you are born into a world where you don't know what is right or wrong. You don't know the culture, but during your childhood you are raised into some kind of culture. And this kid, as the text say up here, this kid doesn't know which kind of clothes is the right clothes to wear. He don't know which kind is the right kind of game to play. He doesn't know what is the right kind of food to eat, and all of that kind of stuff. So no matter what, we will always be a kind of an environment that will raise us in a certain kind of culture. So to understand the right communication, you need to understand the culture. Because if you, for instance, here in Denmark, I think most remember the Muhammed drawings that they made about 10 years ago. And it was more or less okay to go out in Denmark and put them on the front page of, or in a newspaper, Politiken. But it wasn't that great in the Arabic countries. So again, it depends on the culture. And of course, we can't make laugh of different cultures because there's, again, no right or wrong. But sometimes when we have bigger society or societies that is better at communicating and putting it out there in the era, we often hear about them. Or if we have smaller groups that is taking their weapons or using methods that is not, how to say, normal in our culture, we mostly see them because it's unnormal. Culture, when we talk about people and how we facilitate life, culture will always be a part of life. And sometimes culture actually makes life less confusing because we do things, just automatically. We don't think about it, we just do it. But when we go to another country, and for instance, ladies, when you go on toilet in the Arabic countries or in Africa, suddenly they don't have a real toilet as we know it. They just have, or it's not just, but they have a hole in the ground. And there you just stop up and think about, it can ignore you because it's not as you're used to, or you can take it as an experience because this is their culture, this is their way of doing it, and of course you can learn from it. So take it always as an experience when you go out and meet other cultures. Again, you see that in communication all times. And you need to go to your target group and catch your target group. You need to understand which culture they're in, because if you use the wrong colors or the wrong shapes or the wrong symbols, sorry to say, you will not sell your product. So the basic functions of culture, it's history. Everybody has a history. You can go back in many generations, of course, that is history, but also if you go and think about, what did I do this morning? This is history for you as well. And how many things of what I did was actually culture? Think about food. What do you eat? Go to England, the UK. What do they eat for breakfast? Not the same thing as we do here in Denmark, for sure. So really think about, what is culture for you? What about religion? Religion can be many things. You can trust a lot, you can have a great belief, or you can just think, I really don't think that there is a God or whatever you have in your religion. Values and norms. So what do you believe in, not as a religion, but what do you think matters to you? What about the social organization? So here in Denmark, we really like to work in groups. What do they do other places? How do they structure? What about their health system? Do they have kindergartens? What about the elderly people? Do they just go to elderly or taking care house? Or do they live at home with their families? Think about this. The language. Yeah, we have Danish, English, German, and so on. But if you just look at Denmark, we have different languages as well. I think more or less, I think we can count about 10 or 15 dialects just here in Denmark. And some parts really doesn't understand each other because it's so far away, even though that it's Danish. Think about it. So the basic function of cultures can be many, many things. Culture is learned. It is. You have to learn your culture. Again, remember the little boy, the little black boy? He's just born into some society, and then he's raised in the society and he learns the culture. Culture is transmitted from one culture to another culture. So, we have this globalization here in the world, and We see flight tickets that is getting cheaper and cheaper. So people are going all over the world, taking one culture to another culture. Remember, what about peanut butter, for instance? 10 years ago, you didn't really have peanut butters here in Denmark, but many people eat it today. Culture is based on symbols. We have many symbols. Just remember the cross. We have in the Danish flag, Dannebro, we have a cross because in Denmark, more or less many or the most people are Christian. But is this the right culture? Yeah, of course you can discuss this. Culture is a subject to change. We change the culture all the time. We of course have traditions that we like to keep into. For instance, take New Year's Eve, or what about Christmas Day? Do you do the same thing every year? More or less you do. But maybe when you get your own family, you make new traditions because this is more right for you. So culture and traditions is not only something that you see in a broad perspective, but also in a fine and small perspective. But it will change all the time because elements are coming into your culture that has another culture to put into your culture. And of course, culture is an integrated system. It's not just something, but you have many things that integrated system where you have many different types of elements. You have humans. You have different types of the way that you think about time, for instance. You have many things in this culture that has to fit together like a puzzle. And if they doesn't fit, again, you will see a change because we need to live in harmony more or less. Look at this picture here. Just use some minutes to look at this picture. So, for instance, we have in the middle up here, I'm young, so I must be naive. Maybe, maybe not. We are putting people into groups, and those groups are cultures as well. But can you say that they will always be in this box? Of course they will not. But the way that we think about people is often what we see. But if we really get into people and get into the culture they live in, we maybe understand a little bit more of why they are choosing as they do. So remember this when you want to sell your product or your service. Have this in your mind. Or when you want to reach a target group. People are not only people with a paper saying that I wear glasses, I must be Greek. Of course not. So go underneath, go in the deep of humans and see and feel and investigate, research which kind of people are those people. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you got a little bit in tune of what is culture. See you!